having the knowledge of this public key crypto system, we are now going to show you few of the attacks. Okay. First, note that this RSA public key crypto system is a mono-alphabetic public key crypto system, because if you have the value of E fixed and if you have the value of M fixed, whatever be the plain text, if M is the plain text, every time M will go to C. If M dash you have, since the value of E and N are fixed, as a result, M will always go to C. Okay, so that is considered to be one of the disadvantages of the same case as it happens for monoalphabetic schemes. So today I will show you another scheme which is polyalphabetic. There we will able to show that even if we have the same plain text M, with respect to the public key, that M will go to different places, C and C dash. Maybe with the same M it may go to two different places. That means that will be a polyalphabetic cryptographic scheme, and that is known as Elgamal public key crypto system. But before going to Elgamal public key crypto system, let us first have a look at this idea of how we can have some attacks on RSA public key crypto system. In my last class, I have already mentioned about the bidding attack. So what is that meaning? Suppose there is some company is there, and this company wants to bid some article or something, some picture or something. So all of them, all the participants, they will just bid, and whoever will bid, the company says that for making it very transparent, all the bidding values will be encrypted by using some public key crypto system, for example, say RSA public key crypto system. And as a result, based on the public value N and E, all the bidders, they are going to send their encrypted value. Say M1 is the bidding for first participant, say M2 is the bidding for second participant, and M3 is the bidding for third participant. Then all of them, they will just encrypt the value of M1, M2, M3 by using the public key N and E, and send us here like C1, C2 and C3. So that was the idea. And then after few days, when the deadline will be over, the company are going to publish the value of D. Okay. So based on this private value D, all the participants, they can check the bidding values of the others. For example, if P1 is the first participant, then with this value of this D, he will able to check the values of M2 and M3 from C2 and C3 respectively with the value of, because he can then check C2 to the power D modulo N, and we have already shown you this value is nothing but M2. Okay. So each of these participants are going to find these values of M1 and M2 or M3 individually at their own end. As a result, when the deadline will be over, the company is going to make public the value of D. As a result, individually, each of them, they can check who is the smallest, who is the highest bidder, and as a result, the company will declare the name of the highest bidder, and that's quite transparent, so that everybody can see the name of this, and there will be no dispute or anything. But in my last class, I have already shown to you an attack on that. And in that attack, we have already shown you how, without knowing the actual values of the plain text, how the attacker can modify an extended value. That means without knowing the plain text value M1, the attacker will be able to manipulate M1 in such a way that its value will be M dash or M1 dash, such that M1 dash will be say 1% increase of the value of M1. So that is known as bidding attack, and we have already shown to you. So this is a just implementation of the scheme. Let me show you. So for example, suppose, as I mentioned in my last class, suppose this is the RSA public key as well as the private key values. So M and E are the public values, and P, Q, and D's are the private value. Okay. So suppose I have implemented this. So here somebody wants to make a plain text. Okay. So suppose this is RSA encryption. So here the someone is giving the value of 100. As I mentioned in my last class, 100 means 100 into 100. That means 10,000. So his bidding value is actually 10,000. So if I put it here, the value of M as 10,000, and here you can see that the value of N is this value, and value of E is this. So with respect to that, if I compile this, I will get this value, and you can check that corresponding to the value of 10,000, the ciphertext is here this. Okay. So the question is, how did I make this? So idea is very clear. So in Sage, so this is a package kind of thing. In Sage programming language, it actually uses Python as well as C. So in short, we call it Python. So it's very easy here because there are lots of libraries are already inbuilt. So you don't have to make a large programming here. For example, so here I am using RSA function. So it's not inbuilt. So RSA, how I have defined. So RSA as an argument, it takes the plain text value n and the public value n and e. Okay. So M is the plain text and public value this. What I need to do this? So this is encryption function. So for RSA encryption, it should give me the value of M to the power E modulo N. So in Sage, there is a function, inbuilt function called mod. So how it looks like? So the mod function, how it works? It like mod. So suppose I want to calculate a to the power b modulo n, right? So here, so this is a, and I will put it n to the power b. So that will give me the value of a to the power b modulo n. So that I have written it here, say mod m to the power e. That's why power is here, m to the power e modulo n. That is nothing but c. So I just need to print the value of c. So that is will be my ciphertext. Okay. So this is my ciphertext. It will give me the value of ciphertext. Now what I need to have the attacker. So after getting the value of ciphertext, what the attacker will do? Attacker will make like this. So in my last class, I have already explained what he is going to do. So it's the attacker. So for attacker, what are the inputs? Inputs are the plain text. Inputs are the how much increase he wants 1% increase. He needs the public value n and e. Okay. So based on that, what he is going to do, he is first going to calculate this value. So 100 plus this enhanced percentage, this is 100 101. So this is the extra that he wants to make. Okay. Now he is going to calculate basically 100 inverse in modulo n, and then he puts this value of, this is the ciphertext to the power e into mod of this value. Okay, that we have already calculated in this last class, and if you put it like this, then you will get, okay, so I just need to run this one. Is yeah, this one. So this is something is wrong here for encryption. Hmm. Again, something happened here. I'll need to check. I just checked it today. Some syntax error it's saying. Yes.
So, the argument in the mod
Okay,
function is
okay.
missing the first argument.
Yes. So what should it be? It should be yes. Yeah. Thank you. So when I just copied it, I think by some thing it happened and it went away. So now you can see that. So based on the ciphertext, so it was my ciphertext in my it was the ciphertext, that is the encoded value of this 10,000, which was here. This one is the ciphertext. Now for the attacker, he takes this value of ciphertext. So he takes the value of ciphertext here. So maybe let's see, this is yes 6868. So he takes the value of ciphertext like this. We'll put it here, and we made an 1% increase, and this at the public value, and this at the public value. Now if you run this, then you will get this. Yeah, so let's see. Yes, so this is the ciphertext value, same as. So at the end you can see that 4097, and this is 4097. Okay, so now when she beats it, she beats its 999 means 99900. So let's see, we'll again put the plain text as 99900. So if you run this, then you will get this. So this will be the ciphertext corresponding to 99900. So let's see, it's 748 at the end. So 748 at the end. So this is the ciphertext for this 99900. Now when you put something, this is as the ciphertext for the attacker. Now what will happen? So I copied it, I'll just paste it here and then run it, and this is 77 at the end, 0951. Okay, so if I consider it, see, 0951 is the ciphertext for this boy. Now you just if you just decrypt it after the deadline, you will get back this. For example, from the ciphertext this, or maybe from the ciphertext this, let us just have a look at. For decryption, this is the ciphertext, and if we just make a decryption of it, I'll put it here, the value of this, and you will get the value, this is the ciphertext, 100899, 100899, which is nothing but the 1% increase of the value of M3. So that's the very simple way to do this. So if you find some time, it's very easy to learn Sage programming language. You just go to Google, and you just, if you make like this, Sage Math, just type Sage Math here, you will find this open source software. If you are in a Windows, it's very easy. If you are in Linux, then also you don't have any problem. You just go to the download, and you have all the operating systems here. If you are in Windows, you can download it. You just need to check uh, which uh, uh, which operating system, or how is your specification, and then you need to choose from where you want to download it. You may choose MIT Cambridge somewhere. So they are all mirrors, so same copies are stored at different places, and you can put it there, and then you get all the information from there, and then you can download it, and you will have a desktop version of it, and then you just Google it, how to work on it. You will find lots of information about this programming, or about this packages. So it's very easy to use it. And the problem that you had in C programming that it would not run for bigger values of n and all. Here it's very easy that you can see that you can run it even for whatever may be the value. So here you can see that this is the a prime number, and I will show you. So for example, if we consider 2 to the power 10, then 2 to the power 10 means 1024. So the function is next prime. Okay, so next prime function is, you can understand that what is the next prime of 1024, and this is this value. So you may think that this is very small, why not 2 to the power 100? And if you run it very quickly, it gives you this value. It will contain around 30 digits within this. But if you want to make it little more, you can make it like this, and it will take little more time. As you understand, this is a small computer, laptop. If it is a desktop, it could have given in earlier, in easier way. And if it is, so it gives you maybe within 30 seconds, it gives you the value. The slash means a new line, so it should be a continuation. So it will contain around 300 digits. So this is a programming, this is the one which I have shown you. So it contains 2 to the power 3000. So it will contain around 1000 digits, so 914 digits around it was. So you can understand that very easily it will find the primes. So in our course, we'll have primality testing. I will show you, maybe Miller-Rabin or Solovay-Strachan, that I will show you. Since I will be talking about quadratic reciprocity that are within our syllabus, so we will also talk about few primality testing, not with the detailed proof of that, but you will able to understand why it's efficient and how they can be done easily. So this package is very easy. Most importantly, it's free. That means like you don't have to use or buy the MATLAB or Mathematica. With using Mathematica or MATLAB, you can also have these big primes, but you have to pay a lot. But most important thing for this kind of software, which are basically freely available, open source, freely available software, where you don't have to pay anything. You just need to install it, download it, that's all. And that will help you a lot while dealing with big numbers and big primes. So that's very important. So at the end of the course, if I will have some time, I will give some courses on this Sage programming language. But let's see first how to complete this. So now it's where you can understand how it can be implemented by using this Sage programming language. Now I'll go to another attack, which are also very useful, but have some extra condition. So bidding attack, you can understand that why this bidding attack happens. The bidding attack happens due to the fact that it actually has this RSA encryption has the property of uh, homomorphic encryption property. That means encryption of some, so if I have encryption of some M1, M2 is same as encryption of M1 into encryption of M2. So this is, that is why it actually fails for bidding. So this is not a kind of weakness of RSA crypto system, but the inherent property actually prohibits it to be used in case of bidding or bidding scenario. So it's not a fault for RSA crypto system, but this encryption property, this homomorphic property actually prohibits it to be used in case of bidding and similar kind of situation. But otherwise, it's mostly very safe. I'm going to give you another attack, which are also very helpful, but it has some prior condition. For example, suppose I want to use RSA encryption scheme, and suppose I am using a small exponent. Suppose, so how the exponents are, if you remember how the exponents E is being calculated. So E is calculated in such a way such that GCD of E and phi n equal to 1. So here E is a random integer. Okay. So the dealer or the sender who is first in the key generation stage, the receiver who wants to receive this message, he first finds some e, which is a random integer, in such a way that GCD of e and phi n equal to 1. It may happen that the value of e becomes very low. Okay, suppose, for example, suppose e is 3. Okay, you might have chosen e to be 3 for your easy computation, and by chance suppose the m that you want to encrypt is such that m cube is less than n. It might happen the plain text that you want to encrypt, that value is also very less, in such a way that if you make a mq, that value is strictly less than n. So two conditions are there. The e is small. For example, suppose I assume that e is 3. If e is 3, then I assume that m to the power 3 is strictly less than n. So they are the two conditions that I have assumed. In case of 3, 3 is not anything special. I want to mean that the value of e is small. So if you consider any e which is significantly small, then you also have to assume that m to the power e is strictly less than e. So this is the general condition. M is small and m to the power e is also strictly less than e. Let us try to explain the whole attack scenario, assuming that e is 3 and m cube is strictly less than n. So based on that, let us try to explain how this attack scenario will take place. Okay. So this is the public key. E is the public value. That means that is known to the adversary. And MQ, so what will be then the ciphertext? So suppose the receiver wants to send this message to the sorry, this is the other way around. So this is receiver and this is suppose sender. So sender sends the value of, so he has taken e to be 3 and n is a number. So they are the public value. Based on the public value, sender wants to send the value of m. I assume that these conditions are satisfied. That means m e is 3 and mq is less than n. Okay. Under this situation, sender sends this message. So what sender will do? The sender will send basically mq modulo n, this value, right? So the attacker will have this value mq modulo n. Now look at, since mq is strictly less than n, there is no need to take this modulo operation, because if the value of mq is strictly less than n, then the remainder will be the same if you take modulo n or if you don't take modulo m. That means the attacker may think it of the value as an integer. Note that in case of normal RSA, when you have this m to the power e modulo n, with high probability that this value, this actual integer value, gets changed when you take the modulo n, because m to the power e, with high probability that m to the power e will certainly exit n. As a result, if when you take modulo n, then it will take some value which may not be the same integer value as m to the power e. But here this is not the scenario. Since my assumption was mq is strictly less than n, as a result, the value of mq we can consider is as to be an integer. Since this is an integer, then by means of normal techniques, he can very easily can compute mq to the power 1/3. That means he can make it to the power cube root. As a result, what he will get? The adversary will certainly get the value of m. So here, this is one of the attack techniques where we have assumed that the value of encryption function, encryption exponent is small. For example, if it is 3, then I also need to assume that the m cube is also less than, strictly less than n. Under this assumption, this attacks hold, and this attack is known as small exponent attack. Is that a clear to all of you? Any question? Is that a clear? Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
so the attacker doesn't know that the MQ less than N condition will hold or not. So then
No, no, no. He knows. He knows. He knows. That's why this is the condition for the attacker.
okay. So,
Okay.
but when we are making the key public, there the information is not given. So in general, this type of system for small exponent, if the
Yes.
attacker wants to attack the system,
Yes.
so then he has to guess that he is lucky that m to the power e is less than n.
Yes. 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 But yeah. So suppose you suppose by mistaken you have chosen m. For example, say it's quite natural. Sometimes it happens. For example, the way that I have mentioned to you, suppose you have taken P and Q to be very large. Say P and Q to be very large, maybe say next prime of 2 to the power 1000. Okay, so they are quite large. And your encryption technique, you have taken E to be this, and you have taken, say, your message in a ASCII value mode. Like you are encrypting your message character wise. Suppose you want to encrypt Abhishek, first you encrypt A using your these two big primes and E equal to 3. Now if I put capital A, then we know that this value is how much? The ASCII value of capital A is how much?
65.
65.
So 65. Now what you are going to put? 65Q modulo P into Q. Now you can understand that this 65 cube is suddenly less than P into Q, right? 65Q, the value of 65Q, let me check what is the value of 65Q. 65Q is how much? Let's see. So mod 65. Okay, so I don't need to mod. So simply 65, this will be sufficient. So this is only this value. How many terms are there? It's only 6 letters are there, 6 digits are there. But see this P, so this is just 1P, 2 to the power 1000. So this is next prime of 1P. It contains 300 digits, around 300 digits. And another P, say Q, that is also 300 digits. So P and Q product will be around 600 digits, whereas it is only 6 digits. So now you can understand that this condition holds good here, right?
Yes, sir.
So if your encoding technique is like this, you are, because that is the public known, because if you don't make it public, then the receiver will also not be able to encrypt, right? So that's why it's recommended that you should not encrypt the whole thing character wise. It should be in a block. That means, say for example, you take 8 characters together. For example, say Abhishek, in a same as a whole, you take it as a character, one character, and by some means convert it into an integer. That would be a bigger number, but that should be a one-to-one correspondence. So usually the things that are done like this, say AVISHEK, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and say a space is there, and then ADHIKARI, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is, I want to encrypt. What I will do, I will encrypt it in this way. I will take 8 characters together and then 8 characters together. Okay. So the ASCII value of this is 65. Say ASCII value of V, suppose this is 110, suppose. Okay. Now what I will do, I will convert 65 into binary. So if I consider it 65 to be binary, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So 65 in binary will look like this. And I will make, suppose 110 is there. Suppose 110 is something like this. Suppose say this is say 110. So what I will do, I'll just concatenate them. I will put 10 at the back. So I will make it 8-bit long. I'll make it 8-bit long, and I will convert it into 8-bit. S I will convert it into 8-bit, and so on. Then it will be 8 into 8, 64-bit long if I concatenate all of them. See, every time I am making it 8-bit. For example, here some A is there, capital A is there. As I have shown you, to represent A, I need 7 zeros and ones. But I deliberately I make it 8-bit so as to all the characters should be represented in 8-bit. Then you will have a one-to-one correspondence. Suppose here capital A is here. I will make it like 160 and then 1 maybe, but I'll put extra 1 deliberately to make it a 8-bit long. So all of them will be 8-bit long. So it will be a 64-bit long if I have 8 characters altogether. And then from 64-bit, I will make it one integer. So that will be quite a big integer. And then on that integer, I will make it to the power e. So the whole 8 characters together will consider as one integer. And that will be quite a long integer. If you want not 8-bit, if you want total 16-bit together, then Abhishek space Odhikari will give you a total 16 characters long and convert it into binary and then convert it into integer. Then from that integer, you make it something to the power e, and then that will also be a big integer. So it depends. So there are, theory is one thing, and another thing is very important, that is how you are going to implement this. Based on that, lots of attacks may come. So now it's clear to you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is one attack that is known as small exponent attack. Now there is another kind of attack where you want to relax some condition. For example, here one of the conditions was mq should be less than n. Now you want to relax this condition, that mq you don't have. You may think that okay, this may not be quite justified, that mq is less than n, because you may not know the value of m, so it may not be quite justified. So you want to remove this condition, but again certainly you will need to put some extra condition. So what is the scenario now? The scenario is like this: the same message is being sent. For example, suppose some company wants to send the message to all his employees, the same message. So quite naturally, they are going to use the message is same. And suppose now the condition is they are sending like this. Suppose exponent is also here small. For example, suppose here I assume that exponent is e, which is 3. So they are going to use this public value. Okay. So this is for the first employee, they are sending the message m by using the exponent e, but the public value 3 and n1. So n1 is nothing but product of two primes p1 and q1. But to the second participant or employee, they are sending with different n2, which is nothing but product of p2 q2. See, here n2 is being changed, but the exponent remains the same. And here 3 n3, where n3 is P3, Q3. Okay. So here the attack condition is like this. The company which is public, that is the exponent, they are going to send the same message M among the employees, but they are going to change one component of the public value, that is the in one part. That means the product of two prime parts. So for the first employee, they are going to send with in one, which is nothing but P1 into Q1. For the second employee, they are going to send with N2, which is nothing but the product of P2, Q2, and similarly N3, which is the product of P3 and Q3. But they remain fixed with this first component, that means the exponent part. If this is my attack scenario, then how we can attack this scheme? Okay. Is the condition clear to all of you? Is the condition clear? So I'm again repeating. The company wants to send the same message M to different employees. So they want to use RSA encryption. So for RSA encryption, they have two public components. One is E, another one is N. So they are going to use the same E for all the employees, but they are going to vary the values of N1, N2, and N3. So this is the attack scenario. Now, if this could be the attack scenario, let us try to see how the attacker can have the attack on this scheme. Okay. Okay. So if you look at what is then C1, C1 is nothing but same message to the power E modulo N1, right? What is C2? C2 is nothing but same message to the power same E modulo N2. And this is nothing but C3 is nothing but M to the power E modulo N3. Okay. Now I assume that this N1, N2, N3, they are all different values. So they are different. Okay. Now what will happen? It may happen that GCD of some N1, Ni and Nj not equal to 1. Note that Ni, N1 not equal to N2 not equal to N3. But suppose this happens, N1 not equal to N2 not equal to N3, but GCD of some Ni and Nj not equal to 1. Then what would be your conclusion? What help that you will get from here? Any guess? If they are not relatively prime, but they are different, N1, N2, N3 are different, but they are not relatively prime, some I and J. For example, say N1 and N2, suppose they are not relatively prime. Then what will be your conclusion and how that would be helpful?
So they would have only one prime in common.
Yes, since they are not relatively prime, so since they are not relatively prime, so some common factors must be there. Now see that N1 has exactly two prime factors, P1 and P2. N2 has exactly two prime factors, say P2 and Q2. So if they are not relatively prime and they are exactly not the same, now what will happen? They will must have some common factors. Okay. Now, as I mentioned in my previous classes, that finding GCD is an easy way. I mean, there are efficient algorithm, which is nothing but one of the algorithms are Euclid's algorithm, which are quite easy and implementation wise also very easy. That means they are very efficient. So one can very easily compute the GCD of some Ni and Nj. If they find that they are not equal to 1, that means there exists some Ij such that Ni and Nj GCD is not equal to 1, that means the common factor will certainly be a prime factor. That means if they come to know that some prime factor is there for Ni and Nj, then they will able to very easily calculate the other factor, that in a way that they will able to know the factorization of n1 and n2 or ni or nj. For example, suppose n1 equal to 3 into 5 and say n2 equal to 5 into 7. Okay, now n1 not equal to n2, but gcd of n1 and n2 is 5. So if they will calculate the GCD N1 and N2, they will very easily find 5. And if they know that 5 is a common factor of that, then they can factor it out for N1 as well as for N2. That means they will suddenly get the value of 3 from N1 if they know 5. Similarly, if they know 5 here, they will very easily calculate the value of 7. That means if they will able to find the GCD which is not equal to 1, then the scheme will be broken, because they will able to know the factorization of n1 and n2 or ni or nj. So once they know the factorization of that, they will very easily able to calculate the value of d, and from d, which was not known to the attacker, they will able to get the value of m. So if they are not relatively prime, then the case is very easy. Now we assume that all the ij's, so there exists no such ij such that GCD ni nj equal to not equal to 1. That means each of these ni's are relatively prime. Okay, so they are now pairwise relatively prime. Now can you guess some of your known techniques that you can use here? So if you can see, you can remember some of your old things that I have already taught in number theory classes, which may be useful. This things looks quite similar to it. Any guess?
The Chinese.
So Chinese remainder theorem.
Yes, good. So you can use now Chinese remainder theorem. How it looks like? See, this part is nothing but the x part. So in Chinese remainder theorem, what we need, we require like this: x is congruent to say a1 modulo n1, x is congruent to a2 modulo n2, and so on. Okay, x is congruent to a3 modulo n3. Okay, where n1, n2, n3 are relatively prime. Now see that this is the your x, and this is c1, c2, c3. So you can just write it like m to the power e congruent to c1 modulo n1, and then exactly the Chinese remainder theorem format. So what the Chinese remainder theorem says, that this congruence equations will certainly have a unique solution modulo n1, n2, n3. That means it will have certainly a unique solution, say c. So this unique solution, it will have a unique solution, say c, such that x is congruent to c modulo n1, n2, n3. Okay, so similar way, you can from here you will certainly able to say that there exists a unique solution here for the c1, c2, c3. There will be some unique solution such that all the congruence are satisfied. That means m to the power e congruent to c modulo n1, n2, n3. Right? Okay. Now have a look at what is, so e here, our e here is a particular case, e here 3, right? mq is c modulo n1, n2, n3. Now if you look at, when we have encrypted our message, the very condition was, since I have somebody encrypted with this, the message m must be less than n1. That was my first condition. For we should represent the message in such a way that it should be strictly less than n1. Similarly, message should be strictly less than n2, and message should be strictly less than n3. That was the basic condition for RSA. As a result, if you make a product, that means MQ should be strictly less than N1, N2, and N3. Now come to here. What we have obtained? C MQ is congruent to C modulo M1, M2, N3. And just now we have seen that this value of M cube is strictly less than N1, N2, N3. As a result, you can simply ignore the modulo operation, because now with respect to M1 into M2 into M3, M cube may be considered as an integer. So just like my previous attack, now see that this condition automatically comes here. As a result, you can use the, just like my last result, you can use that small exponent in such a way the value of MQ was strictly less than n. You can apply here and you will get m to the power MQ 1/3 to get the value of m, and you will be able to attack on this. Is the idea clear? Is the idea clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Any question or doubt? Anybody? Okay. So clear, right? Okay. So now I will give you another type of attacks on same RSA public key crypto system, which was actually known as. So that attack should also have some model, like uh, the same M. Okay, you are sending it with respect to say E1 and E2, the exponents, but with say uh, same n. You are using it with same n, but you have changed the exponents in such a way that GCD of E1 and E2 equal to 1. So now my attack model is, you are sending the same M to two different persons with the two different encryption components E1 and E2, but your n is same. So this component is same for both of them, but the E1 and E2 are such a way that GCD of E1 and E2 equal to 1. So they are relatively prime exponents. With respect to that, let us try to see how some attacker may get this. So what the attacker has, the attacker has this value m to the power E1 modulo n. He also has m to the power E2 modulo n, right? So the attacker has. Now the attacker also knows that GCD of E1 and E2 equal to 1. So as I have already mentioned in my number theory classes, that if GCD equal to 1, then there exists some E. You can always write in terms of like this. This is, sorry, this is, there exists some U and V integers such that U E1 plus V E2 must be equal to 1, which is the GCD. So the GCD can be represented in terms of E1, sorry, U E1 plus V E2 form. Now the attacker has this, right? Now what the attacker will do? The attacker will simply do, so he has m to the power E1, he will simply make it like this to the power U into, he has also m to the power E2. For this he will make it V. Okay, now let us try to see what it is. So this is nothing but m to the power E1 U plus E2 V. Now what is this value? This value is 1. So this is nothing but n. So the attacker will be able to get the value of m if he knows the the value of m to the power e1 as well as m to the power e2, as well as he has some extra knowledge, the GCD of e1 and e2 equal to 1. That's all. So he will able to encrypt this values. Okay, is it clear? Any question or doubt? Any question or any doubt you have? Okay, so hopefully no question. So there are few attacks. So I have already mentioned about 4 different attacks with different models. Now I will go to another public key crypto system, which is known as Ilgamal public key crypto system. So let us have a look at Ilgamal public key crypto system. Okay, so is the screen visible to all of you? Okay, so
Yes, sir.
here, okay, so here also we have the similar situation like a sender and a receiver. So suppose he is the receiver and he is the sender. So again, like public key crypto system, it's the duty for the receiver to react first. So he or she should have the infrastructure first. So that is known as key generation algorithm. Let us have a look at what is the key generation algorithm. So in case of receiver, she will first choose a big prime P. So again and again, see, we are applying the term big primes. So here you can understand big primes means 1,000 digits or maybe 300 digits or maybe 400 digits long. So that's why we call it big primes. And in maybe next class, we'll show how to get these big primes. Okay, and that could be also very easily. So here we have, he will choose a big prime P. From there, he will construct ZP star. As you know, what is ZP star? That means U of P. And we know that this is a cyclic group. So he will choose a generator of this ZP star. Okay. So this will generate the cyclic group ZP star. Now he will choose. So this is his first setup stage. Now he will choose some secret integer a. So a from where? He will choose a from this interval. So he has already p and q. So he will choose this value a and compute g to the power a modulo p and compute. So he has his generated g to the power a modulo p and we call it this value as x. So see, he has many things. He has p, he has the group ZP star, he has the generator for this group ZP star. He makes a from this interval, from the a should be taken from this interval. Note that 1 to p minus 1. So 1 to p minus 1. He chooses this value and he calculates g to the power a modulo p and we term it as x. Okay, now this part is done. So he needs to make some value public and secret. So he is going to make the value of this public. What are the public things? Like p, g and x. Remember what is x? X is nothing but g to the power a modulo p. So he is going to make this value public. Public. Okay, what he is going to keep with him? This value a is kept secret with him. So that is done. So the key generation part is over. Now it's a turn for the sender. So what the sender will do? Sender will collect this public value. Now she has this public value. Now what he is going to do? He will receive this text m in the interval 1 to p minus 1. So he has some, he wants to send this plain text value which should lie between 1 to p minus 1. Now what he is going to do, he will make two things. He will choose a random element, we call it ephemeral key. Why this is called ephemeral key, I will explain you later on. Belongs to zp minus 1. He will choose some random, we call it random ephemeral key from zp minus 1. Okay. Now he is going to make two ciphertext, C1 and C2. So what is C1? C1 is simply g to the power k modulo p. See, he has already this value p as well as g, so he can calculate g to the power k modulo p. So k value he made, g he knows from the public value of the receiver, and he knows p, that is also public value of the receiver. Now what is C2? See, till now in C1 there is no application of M, which was the plain text. Now he needs to somehow encrypt this plain text value. What is that plain text? So what is C2? C2 is nothing but M into x to the power k modulo p. M he has and x he has as a public value, and again this k he already made his own, k modulo p. Okay, so he now knows the value of C1 and C2, and this C1 and C2 are sent to the receiver. Okay, so C1 contains the plain text value and C2 has some extra information. Now what will be the role for the receiver? The receiver simply calculates in one step this value, C1 to the power a. See, he has the secret value this, so he is going to calculate C1 to the power a inverse, C1 to the power a inverse into C2, and surprisingly that gives him the value of M. So the receiver will get the value of M. Okay, so that's here the mathematics comes into play, but it's very interesting. First of all, what do you think this scheme is based on which assumption? Like RSA crypto system was based on some assumption which we already mentioned in my last few classes, that it's based on the factorization is a hard problem. So factorization is a computationally hard problem, that is a kind of believed to be hard problem. So RSA crypto system is mostly based on that hardness assumption. Okay. Now my question is, in my last class, I have already mentioned about Diffie and Hellman key exchange protocol. And while mentioning about Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol, I have also mentioned about a hardness assumption. Do you remember that? What was the hardness assumption?
So discrete
Sir,
logarithm.
log x will c.
Yes. So that is known as DLP, discrete logarithm problem. So what was that? If I just recap it, what was that discrete logarithm problem? Discrete logarithm problem says that if you have a prime number, if you have in a general form, we can also have like this. If we have a group, a cyclic group G, which is generated by say G, and if I take a value of say K, and if I give you, so I take K as secret, if I give you G and G to the power K, and if I ask you, can you give me back this value of K, then in my last class I have already mentioned that given G and G to the power K, it's still very difficult to get back K. That is known as discrete logarithm problem. So you have a group at your hand, you have a generator of that group, and if I choose some K, and if I give you just G to the power K and ask you back just from G and G to the power K, can you give me back the value of K? Very easily, for mathematician mind, you can very easily say, why not? I will just start doing g square, g cube, and one day I will certainly get g to the power k. And when this value of g to the power k will starting from here, when I get this value of g to the power k, I will return that value k, and you will certainly get. But from computer science viewpoint, if the size of group is say size maybe say 1000 digit long, that means maybe in the order of 2 to the power 3000, then it's really difficult for a machine to get the value of k. So till now, no very good algorithm, no efficient algorithms are known which will be able to give you back the value of k from g and g to the power k. So that is why this is also known as believed to be hard problem. And since why this is called discrete logarithm problem, I mentioned in my last class. So this is known as discrete logarithm problem. Now you can understand that based on this discrete logarithm problem, this Ilgamal crypto system is actually secure. So why? So what was the thing? First, let me try to explain what was the mathematics here. So what are the things that are given to the adversary? So adversary, what he gets? He gets the public value. What are the public values? Public values are the, so here you can see that the public values are the G, P and X. So the public values, what are the knowledge of the adversary? G he knows P, he knows X. What was X? X was G to the power A modulo P. Note that this value of A is kept secret. So A is not known to the attacker. And from X, it's really difficult to get back A because due to the strong assumption or due to the assumption that discrete logarithm problem is difficult. Okay. Now he also knows the values of C1. What was C1? If you look at C1 was G to the power K modulo P. So C is G to the power K modulo P. And what was C2? C2 was M x to the power K modulo P. C2 was M x to the power K modulo P. Well, so first we need to check whether from here he gets the value. So if he, from here, if he gets the value of A, then he is done. Why? Because as like the receiver does, how the receiver was doing, he is just calculating C1 to the power A minus 1. Let us just check what happens. C1 to the power A inverse into C2. Let's see what is this value. This value is nothing but, what is C1? C1 is nothing but, so G to the power K to the power A, then whole inverse, right? Into what is C? C is nothing but M into x to the power K. What is x to the power K? G to the power A to the power K, right? Now you can see that this is nothing but G to the power AK inverse, and this is also G to the power AK. And since this is a commutative group, altogether this is GKA whole inverse into GKA. As a result, this will get cancelled. You will finally get the value of M. So now you have M. So if you know what the receiver does, he basically made it C1 to the power A and then just C2. Whatever he gets, he make it a product. So what he does extra is making C1 to the power A. See, here the attacker has the value of x to the power x. That means G to the power A. So from here, for the attacker, it's not possible to get the value of A because it is known as, if he can do this, then he is going to break the hardness assumption that discrete logarithm problem is a difficult problem. So for the adversary from X is really not possible to get the value of A. As a result, with this knowledge of so many information, he won't be able to decrypt this. So that is a kind of intuitive idea that why discrete logarithm problem is required here, and why this how the adversary is unable to break the scheme, because to break the scheme he needs to break the discrete logarithm problem, and this discrete logarithm problem is considered to be a hard problem. As a result, he won't be do this. So the question is why this k is involved here. So it's a very nice way. First look at that. The receiver, that means the guy who makes the infrastructure, the receiver, the guy who makes the infrastructure has no clue about the value of k, right? So here there is no way of having the value of k, but the sender actually makes the values of k, right? So how this guy gets the value of k? So that is why that's very interesting. That is why he actually sends the value of k in terms of C1. So C1 is basically to help the receiver to get the value of k. That means to get actually this k is not actually used here. See, this k is get cancelled by this k, right? So he has given this value of k, he just distribute this value of k in two different forms. In one C1, another one is C2. With this random k, so for every message he is choosing this k. That's why even if you have the same message m, the value of C2 will be different for the same message m. Why? Because every time for every message you are choosing k differently. K is a random message. So it might have k may be same for two consecutive runs, but that's very less probability that with a very big group two consecutively you are taking the same value k. It's very rare occasion. So it may possible probabilistically, but it would be a very rare occasion. That's why for almost every cases, for same m, the m will be, the C2 will be different. As a result, you will end up with two different ciphertext for the same message. That's why it is a polyalphabetic cipher system, unlike the RSA crypto system. In RSA crypto system, every time m will go to the same C, because you are going to use the same E and N. But here, that is not the scenario. That is why this is the same M may go to two different places. So based on that, this crypto system comes into play. Is it clear to all of you? Any question or doubt?
Sir,
Yes.
what if I choose k equals to p minus 1?
K equal to P minus 1. Just have a look at this. If you consider this value K, the K is taken from Z P minus 1. So the value of K can never be P minus 1. It's from 0 to P minus 2. Clear?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay. So this is known as Elgamal public key crypto system, and that is also a public key, and still it's useful and many people are still using it.